time it is. Hit the horn. I hope you're as excited as I am. I am back. It is 1 p.m., the best hour of your week. Yeah. Oh man, I have an applause button. I don't even have to I don't even have to do the applause manually. It can auto applause. But I'm gonna go ahead and give an applause because I miss not being here. I like to be here. I love the stimulating conversations. And so, man, we're going to have a good one today. If you're reading in the chat, clearly it's going to be one of those. And as always, I have no idea what's in store. So this is going to be very interesting as always. So I love it. But as you know, we have to have someone who is here more consistent than the postman. Rain, shine, sleet, snow, tornadoes, hurricanes, Sharknado, Mark Boatwright Frost.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's Wednesday. It's tipping points and puzzle pieces. How can I not be doing better?
Oh man. Well, that's good. I don't know if it's cathartic for you. Sometimes you're a little angry. So if this is a way for you to kind of purge those feelings and recharge.
It is, and it's always it's not so much anger as it is frustration. You
Mm,
think about the work we do. The
yes.
work we do is trying to bring people together, and we frequently, whether it is or not what we are actually seeing, we frequently interpret the response as apathy. And when you know that lives depend on it, apathy isn't what you're looking for.
Yeah. Are
And
there
it,
days where you feel like kind of clubbing people like a baby seal?
oh God, yes, frequently.
Don't club them. we need a club like Captain Caveman.
Yeah,
You're old enough to remember that cartoon, right?
not one of the ones I'm familiar with.
Really?
Yep,
Captain Caveman.
yep. No, I was kind of blessed in a way. I grew up in Southern California,
Mm-hmm.
and you had the Hanna Barbera garbage that was on, and then you had Bozo the Clown and Sheriff John and stuff, which is Southern California stuff, Hobo Kelly, things like that. But just about that same time, Raymond Chow and Golden Harvest started importing Japanese anime, and they did translations loosely, and we started getting things like Speed Racer, Kemba the White Lion, Tobar the Eight Man, Marine Lad, and these were Japanese animation, which
Star
means
Blazers.
Star Blazers, yeah, Star Blazers, Yamato, Battleship Yamato, Captain Harlock, and these are the things that I grew up with as a kid, as opposed to, and so you're trying to show me Hanna Barbera stuff, and I'm like, eh, I'll be over here where the stories are actually good and the animation is phenomenal.
You love trivia. There is a live action version of the Yamamoto. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Yamato.
Yamamoto. There is a live
Yeah,
action. It's actually pretty good.
I
It's
have not
actually
seen
really
it.
good.
I'm going to have
Yeah.
to.
If you find it, try to look for it. It's really good.
Yeah.
Really good live action.
And there is a updated version of Captain Harlock out there that I saw that
Oh,
was really, really good. It was like CGI done version of it, so it was a lot more realistic anime, more 3D kind of feel.
maybe in the last 10 years or so.
Oh God, yes,
Yeah.
it's fairly recent. It was on Netflix, but it moves around between streaming uh,
I
things.
might have seen it. I might have seen it.
Yeah, it is a great view of the mythology of Harlock. So
Hey, did I just hear your stomach over your mic?
maybe I don't know.
Wow. I guess I just heard your stomach growl. Like your mic is excellent.
Yeah, I'll have to raise it up a little bit so it's not quite so chest level.
Okay. Like, oh man, yeah, you need to get a carrot or something.
Yeah, actually, no, I'm full. It's been that kind of day. I've been running since early this morning. Um, okay, so here's what's going to happen over probably the next 3 months of tipping points and puzzle pieces. It's time to start talking about the projects. It's time to focus on the projects. And since Monday, I finished submitting a grant to Kitsap Community Foundation for our Community for All project. And God
Nice.
knows, who knows if we're actually going to get it. But the grant was submitted. Um, on Monday. And if we do, it will allow us to expand our outreach for the Community for All project dramatically. It
Awesome.
will take care of being able to rent facilities. It will take care of being able to provide food for events, for
Mhm.
potlucks. It will take care of a lot of the pieces for the community work that we're doing, and it will buy tools and seeds for community gardens.
Ah, all right.
So I want to start off by saying that none of the projects that we do in the Kitsap Resiliency Project, and this would be a good time to put up the Kitsap Resiliency Facebook page link I gave you.
You got it.
None of the projects function without community for all. Without bringing community together, nothing else will work. Because it takes people working together to create the power to make things change between each other, between their region, between the governments. Nothing happens without people coming together and making agreements. And we'll talk about some of the challenges of that in a few moments. But nothing works without that. Now, if you go to the Kitsap Resiliency Project page, we post all of our events there. We give all our information there. We will be posting the presentation that you'll see today there, so you can look through that. Um, Everything is here. And I know, oh my God, Facebook and all of that stuff, but it's a tool. And we use this tool because it is the most effective tool of all of the social media platforms for giving a good view of what, of the information, the calendaring, and everything else we do. That
Wow.
said,
Sounds like you came around a little bit.
huh?
Sounds like you
Oh,
came around a little bit.
no, I don't like Facebook even still because I have to be the one that posts things on it, and it's a pain in the butt, and they keep changing the rules. But to present to the public, to present to the people who are interested in our project, who want to create community, who want to see a better future, it's a tool that is accessible to everybody. So, yeah. Marwan just asked me if I could carry on without him, and yes, I can. Um, So we'll get into the a PowerPoint in a moment, but let's talk a little bit more about this. Very soon, we will be putting up a page on Mighty Networks that is going to be the Kitsap Resiliency Project page. It's going to be a place where people who want to engage can engage without having to deal with Facebook and the algorithms. So that will be happening in the next month. We're working that out now. We will also be able to do classroom there. So the workshops will be appearing online in the Mighty Networks. We will be having a face-to-face meetings in Zoom meetings there, so you can ask um, questions about what we're doing. You can engage in projects. We will have project lists there and sign-up sheets and surveys. So once that's up and running, we will announce it, and we invite you to join us and become part of the community that will create larger communities that will create a future of Kitsap that is more human centric and more equitable and supportive of everybody. So that's going to be the next step of what we do. So, but you'll also see that on the Kitsap Resiliency Project page on Facebook. So please go there. Also, just a bit of a pitch. We are self-funded. We don't. I mean, we just applied for a grant from the Kitsap Community Foundation that will go directly toward reaching out to you and helping support the community as a whole. That will help us train people to go to your community and help you set up a garden so that you will be able to be successful right away with that. We will be training people to help your community connect and facilitate communications and create greater communities because we understand that doing it on your own is hard. So we still are asking people from communities to join us as a community ambassador or neighborhood ambassador so we can train you to do the work, but we will also be training people to support you. And that we understand is a key part of being able to grow communities together. So We'll talk a little bit about what the benefits are, but we are wired as human beings to have community.
Oh, that's awesome.
We just need to figure out how to do that again. And that's what we're working on.
Um,
So I will jump into the PowerPoint presentation and we will talk a little bit more about community. So let me figure this out again and do this. All right. So every week from this point forward, we will be talking about aspects of the projects. And each project aspect will probably take multiple weeks to cover. So each session will be a little bit different version of that. Today, we're going to talk about community for all. But again, I remind you that all of the projects, the power for all, food for all, water for all, communications for all, depend on us being successful with community for all. And so that's the key piece of this. So let's move through this a little bit.
That's something that we can use on the contract because we've been
All right,
operating
there we go.
3 years.
So to start with, and I'm gonna bring this to the forefront here, maybe. Let's see that one. Yeah, there we go. Bring this to the forefront here. This is the Webster's definition of community, and the first one,
Less than that.
people with a common interest living in particular area, broadly speaking, is probably the most
Can I put together
useful
prides and then estimate
definition of this. But as you see, each one of these is a definition of community, but it's so confusing, and there doesn't seem to be one definition or one understanding of community. And that's kind of what I want to talk about to start this off. Part of the issue and the challenge is that we need to come to an agreement up front on what words mean. And let's talk about that for a little bit. Okay. So the problem with words and meanings. Now, I went through the public school system like many of you did. And I say liars because it took me until I met a gentleman far after graduating from high school and having dropped out of college, quite honestly, who said that English teachers lie.
You're right in the dead of
English is a living language. It changes over time, and we've seen this. And sometimes it changes really quickly. Words tend to morph into other meanings, and so when you look at the dictionary, like we just did, it gets to be confusing because the same word can be used lots of different ways to mean lots of different things. And this is a challenge for communication, as you might guess. So English really doesn't have rules being a living language. They change. The rules sometimes change. And even where you put a period may change. It hasn't yet, but it could. So we should think of it as guidelines, and they should be taught that way. So we already have a discussion about how complicated a word can be in understanding it. We've talked about the fact that words change over time and get adopted. Now we're going to talk about the fact that they get co-opted. And when we talk about co-opted, words get co-opted to dilute their meanings. And this happens a lot with corporate influence because the word can hurt corporate profits. The word sustainability is the most recent that I can remember of these things, where the word sustainability started being diluted and changed to mean a lot of things. And while, as many of you have already heard, I have problems with the word sustainability as a goal anyhow, because it's too limited. But we change it and we adopt it and we greenwash it and we dilute it until it's meaningless and people can't hear it anymore because it's confusing. Okay, so these are things that happen. So now you're starting to think, well, how can we even communicate when words don't mean the same thing, when they change constantly, when they get diluted? And we have to come back to the point of there's no clear agreement on what a word can mean. So when I say something to Marwan and Marwan says something to me, we could be thinking one thing, but mean something completely different. And now we're at conflict with each other about what we think.
Mark, that happens all the time. I'm glad that you have this as a slide because not only does that happen, but Some folks are very, hey, here's the dictionary, the literal meaning of this phrase or this word, and that's how I'm using it. But maybe the lexicon currently they're using it in a different way. And then
So
there's the
I'm actually going to go back because we actually just covered that.
oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. So this
Now
is
that's
the
me. I just
Webster.
jumped in, so I'm like, oh man.
This is the Webster's definition of the word community,
Okay.
and it means a whole bunch of different things, and there's no one meaning. So when I say community, what are we really talking about?
Facts.
So yeah, we start talking about this, and then we understand all of this other stuff happens with words. And so how do we even possibly come to an agreement and create a community without taking the time for clear agreement, which often means listening to somebody else say something and then asking them about what they meant so that you can come to an agreement about what they mean.
One of the and I can't remember where this happened, so please forgive me. It may have been a college course. And depending on what the topic was for the day, our instructor, the professor, would give us vocabulary words and definitions so that we were on the same scaffolding,
Right.
if you will, right? And so if you disagreed with the definition, then we could have that discussion. But for the discussion, when this word is used, this is the
Exactly.
really
Exactly. So right here, you remember the word. This may be too old for most people here, but there was a game a long time ago called Pong, and the idea is to use those paddles on the side to send the ball back and forth across the screen. And communication's a lot like Pong. You hit the ball, it's bouncing off of different things, and it's the other person to see whether they can catch it and understand it, or send it back to you, and you miss as often as you hit. So until you have a group of specialists talking, which is one of the definitions under community, it's the only time you actually, where they have agreed upon definitions, a small group of very narrow focus, you will actually have a conversation where things are understood. And even there, you trip over each other.
Mm-hmm.
So the process is, my point here in this process is you have to relearn how to communicate to create relationships and community. And I would challenge people to look at what they do, how they communicate in a romantic situation, and how you have mismatches and how many arguments come from those mismatches.
A lot of relationships break up over text or email because the intent, the emotion isn't there.
Yep. Did I ever tell you my rule?
The way you intended.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you my rule for communication?
No.
And it's actually getting shorter now. I used to have a rule that if I do 3 emails with somebody and it's obvious that they're not communicating, I pick up the phone and talk to them.
When I taught communications, one of the things that we were teaching was that you should not have, and when you're talking about email etiquette, right? Mm-hmm. That you wouldn't have more than 3 asks in an email because folks aren't going to be able to do all 3, right? They're going to miss something.
And people send long diatribes, and it's just like, quite honestly, you send me a long diatribe that's not to the point and doesn't have and doesn't have the something to get me to understand that the rest of it is important, I'm not going to read it. And I expect that from other people, which is why communication to other people is so important.
But culturally, that may be their communication style, right?
Yep. Okay. So now we're back into familiar territory for this. So how do we overcome this situation? We find community or neighborhood ambassadors. We find people who are a caring neighbor or a caring person. They are driven to have a better life. They see a bigger picture. They have buy-in to doing something to create a bigger picture. They're willing to be trained, or more importantly, untrained. And they're willing to do the work, and they're willing to be persistent about it. So these are the people that I started off this conversation and we're looking for to go to their neighborhoods. We want to engage you in a process of unlearning and learning to communicate, and then turn you loose on your neighborhood. And this was originally, you were the sole support, but now we're going to be developing more people to support you because we understand that it's complicated, and sometimes the very relationship and the fact that you're a known quantity creates a problem in trying to communicate with people. So you'll have somebody to bring in with you to help facilitate the conversation. And so this is where we're heading with the community project. So now we'll talk about what that looks like.
Mm.
So yeah, Marwan likes my drawings here as opposed to text. So yeah, um, how successful, Marwan, are you when you try and have a discussion about politics with somebody?
Woo, boy. That's it depends on who the conversation is with. It depends on what the
Whether they
topic.
agree with you?
Yeah, whether they agree with me. Um, so it can be difficult, right?
How about religion? How's that work out for you?
That works out halfway decent typically because I usually don't have a conversation about religion with folks that I would say that are in the same camp, right? If you're
Right.
atheist, agnostic, or Catholic, or we don't tend to get into dialogue in that way. Um, Only because I think for me it's a divisive point, right? It's you
Hmm.
believe what you believe, I believe what I believe. If we need to have that conversation and go there, we can, but I don't find myself in that situation, too often.
So you agree that politics and religion can be divisive subjects.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So what if we put those aside for the purpose of connecting with your neighborhood?
I That's difficult. I don't know if that can be done,
Well, it's difficult, but what if you talk about things that are of mutual human value to each of you?
but that's part of the human value, right? If we're looking at religion, right? Uh,
It,
I have a quote, in the Bible that says, when I was naked, you clothed me. When I was hungry, you fed me, right? You could say, well, that's just a human being a humanist. But everyone may not feel that way. Some people may feel like pull yourself up from your bootstraps, right? That's their ideology.
so
Uh,
what if we train people to refocus the conversation every time it starts going there too? But does that put food on your table? Let's talk about actually getting food on your table. Let's talk about helping your wallet survive the rising prices of food. Let's help your family's nutritional value overcome shortages of food.
so I'm confused because there are people who they are able to put food on their table and they are able to,
Mhm.
decide what nutritional value of the food that they consume is. So when you're having that conversation, that's where the communication breaks down, right? I'm able to do this. I do this. They should be able to do that, right?
Right. And but it's getting harder all the time. So I mentioned this. I don't think you were here for the last couple of times when I talked about this. Last 2 weeks ago, we had a Category 3 hurricane on the west in the Pacific, and in the east in the Atlantic on either side of the Panama Canal. Panama Canal has been slowing shipping down because they're running out of fresh water due to a drought that is allowing them to fill the canal. So the boats aren't going through the canal anywhere near as fast because they don't have the water to fill the canal, which they're filling
Mhm.
with fresh water. And then each time that they fill the canals, and so everything's slowing down because of that. Apparently, the Suez Canal has had some political issues going on, and we aren't getting olive oil out of Europe. The growing seasons throughout the southeast and the west in the United States have been disastrous this year. So there will be less produce available to us and less food going through processing. So yes, people have been able to put food on the table, but it's going to get harder and harder and harder. Part of what we do here is to develop resiliency in communities and help them be able to continue to provide food. And
You
so
know,
that's what we do. We have that conversation first.
well, I hear what you're saying, and I think for me, where the because you asked me
Hmm.
just earlier about conversations with religious or politics, right?
Yeah.
So where I see the disconnect with is the haves, the have-nots, and the I kind of have it, but I'm starting to struggle, right? And the folks that typically make the decisions for our city, our county, for our nation, are folks that are in the haves category, right?
Yes.
So that's where the disconnect is. It's like, well, it's getting harder and harder to put food on your table. And for them, it's a zero-sum game, right? Because it's like, hey, me and mine are doing just fine. So what you're proposing, in my mind, I'm hearing take something from me to give it to them.
No, this is something like, let's talk about food. Let's do a community garden, and everybody in the community benefits from the food.
Okay, so what are the costs on a taxpayer to do such a thing?
No, it's a cost on the neighborhood, and I'm betting people in your neighborhood, as we've already discussed, are already doing that. So if you go out and you buy $10 worth of seeds and work with the people in your community to grow more food, and everybody shares in the food, and everybody puts $10 in, suddenly you have several $100s worth of food over the summer.
Well, where are we putting these gardens?
Well, you talk to your neighbors about the people already having a garden and asking them if they'd be willing to expand it. How about all those lawns in front of the houses that take water and maintenance that could suddenly be producing food?
Okay, but
Part of the conversation we train people to have is to talk about changing people's perspective on front yard lawns and to maybe doing food instead. And then
right,
the whole community, people in the community come and help weed. People come in the community help, a little bit at a time, and everybody benefits.
that sounds good. And here's where it breaks down. What is it? More than 40% of residents here are renters, right? So
Yep.
now you need to get the homeowner to agree to that. See what I'm saying? And many are like, well, we don't want that. You can't have a grill inside. We were talking about this a few months ago in the summer, right?
Yeah.
No, you can't water your grass. So things like that. So how do you overcome that? Because that's where
Together. That's the point of bringing people together. The gardens are the starting point. You're taking people who've never worked together and don't know anything about it, and you're teaching them to work together with a mutual benefit out of it is the food. Okay. And then you start talking about other things that are important, like, well, how do we expand this? Or, my water bill just doubled, or my power bill just doubled. What can we do? So, as I said, we will be talking about all of the projects, but all of the projects are on the table until this one works, because this is the power that create all of the other projects. We're back to we the people. Yes, I know that's a worn and tired statement, but you talked about politicians having, but when you have people coming together and telling the politicians, well, you may have, but we do not, and we have a voice, we want this changed.
and that is exceedingly difficult. And I'm speaking from experience because
Yeah, it is, but and it takes time to do, but it's the only way anything's ever changed. So you get connected neighborhoods, you build networked communities, and you create grassroots change. That's the way it's done. And when you're talking to people who have no idea what you're talking about, you go back to talking about gardens.
I'm just absorbing it. I'm just trying to take it in. I don't want to derail the conversation.
Okay, so we'll go with this one. It's a little bit different picture of the whole thing. Is you have a connected neighborhood, and then you have a lot of connected neighborhoods. Now, do you think democracy works? Not our democracy, but democracy in general. The concept of democracy, not what the fuck is going on.
Yes,
Yeah, you're going to have to beep that one out. Sorry. What's going on in DC right now, which is dysfunctional, but isn't it always?
Man, that's hilarious.
2 days away from a government shutdown. What can I say?
And I don't think we can avoid it. Do you?
Well, Senate just basically put a budget together in 2 days and said, this is what we're going to vote on. And they're looking at the House going, you can do whatever you want to do, but you're going to have to deal with this because this has to happen. I was watching Bo of the Fifth Column, and he says the difference between the Senate and the House is the Senate are grown-ups.
Are they? Who is the Senate? Who is the ones that put the budget together in 2 days?
Yes.
How are
And
they
there are no divisive things in the budget at all.
How are they the grown-ups?
because they put it together while the House is still talking about we need to, put an impeachment for Biden in there and put all this political stuff. It's a budget to run the country and keep it functioning. Just
Why
leave
are
the
they
politics out of it.
why are they putting together a budget 2 days before the shutdown?
Because the House hasn't done it yet. The House is responsible to do this, and the House has been unable to with their infighting. And the Senate usually just approves it, and we have a budget. It's the House's job, and they have not been able to do it. So let's go back to the question. Let's move off of that and go back to the question. Do
Okay.
you think democracy in general, as a concept, works? Representative, as a representative government.
Yes.
So this slide is democracy in action on a local grassroots layer. You get a neighborhood connected. The neighborhood goes through this process of figuring out what's important over time. They bring in a representative. The representative goes to a larger group, a community group, and they start the same process again because each one of the people coming from the neighborhoods have a different set of priorities than the rest of them. So they go through it, they go back to their neighborhood, and they do representation like it's supposed to be done. And then you create from that, you end up with a scaled grassroots community engagement. So you say, well, we're really tired of dumping sewage into Dyes Inlet, or into Sinclair Inlet, or into the Hood Canal, or into the Sound. We would like you to change your technology of doing this so that the stormwater piece is separate forever from the sewage piece, which is predominantly what causes that. We are tired of having our power go out while we're on a farm. We have a large rural community here, so I'm going to use a rural example because it's most poignant. We have a well, and when the power goes out, our water doesn't pump up. And so we have no water to water the horses or shower or flush our toilets or do anything because the power went out. And it's been out for 2 days. And so we haven't showered or watered the animals or done anything for 2 days because the power's out. We have all electric heat and it's winter and our power went out and we're cold and it's been out for 3 days. And this is not an uncommon thing. But to your point about the haves and have-nots, I talked to a former city council person. They said, well, I happen to be on the hub of 3 different power sections, so we never have a power outage. Well, good for you. But the mass majority of people in this county deal with 1 day, 6 hour to 3 or 4 days without power frequently during the winters.
Well, that really just kind of speaks to my point, right? How do you build the community, quote unquote, and stimulate that conversation where it is a win-win?
Well, because you listen to what the community finds important and you tie it back to what we're doing.
No. I mean, in regards to the gentleman or
the city council person we talked about?
Yes.
Okay, so you see that big green blob over here?
Uh-huh.
How many people would it take to elect you in your district? How many people are likely to vote in your district, and how many people would it take to elect you?
Oh man, I think it's like 1,100 or something like that.
So what if 2,000 people are on board in your district to see things change, and you're saying, well, it doesn't bother me, why should I worry about it? How long do you think you'd have your seat?
Well, let me put it this way, because this is what's actually happening right now when we talk about the unhoused on NL King and Broadway, right?
Yeah.
The city, the citizens, I would say they're split. They don't want it in their neighborhood, but they want something done about it, right? So both sides are in agreement there. But there's a split in how to go about providing services for that population of people, right? And so what you have is both sides coming to city council in between the weeds, they're saying the same thing, but it looks like it's a divisive thing from a community aspect, right? There's two big blobs of green, to use the example on the screen,
Mm-hmm.
and they're in conflict as they're talking with city council and to the mayor, right? And then there's also
Perfect.
that same thing with city council and the mayor. Now I'm trying to express it in a way where we're actually both on the same side. But of course, it's a very triggering and an emotional situation, especially if you're negatively impacted by the unhoused population.
And there will be a whole lot of that going on as things get worse.
Oh man, amen.
So the whole point about this model here is that you've already had that conversation in your neighborhood. You've already had the conversation about the causative effects, and you are starting to say, well, how can, okay, so I just watched a TV show that blew my mind. It's not on anymore, but there was a TV series a few years ago called New Amsterdam, and they're
Mm,
screening it on Netflix.
okay.
And the very first episode, the new director of medicine for this hospital comes in and brings all of the department heads and everything else in. And the first words out of his mouth is, how can I help? And I sat here with my mouth open, thinking about the power of that approach. How can I help? What would help you service your patients better? How can I help? And it just, the whole concept of that, which is kind of ingrained in what we do here, is so we bring neighborhoods together and they say, well, how can I help? How can I help you have more food on your table? How can I help you if you're struggling? How can I help you get through what's happening and what's going to happen? And we want to engender that thinking. Now, what if those conversations had happened before they went to city council and the green blob going to city council already understood that everybody was on the same page for the most part about the homeless, but the situation and the cure for homelessness can't happen with a magic wand. It has to happen with a change in how we approach the problem. But we have
I
to recognize the problem first, and we have to come together and have those hard discussions. And it can't be in a city council meeting.
Well, that's who has to make the change, right?
No, they don't have the authority to make the change that needs to happen. They have the authority to address situational things and tactical things that are happening now. But to change the way homelessness is addressed, that's a much bigger picture. And people have to come together because, after all, that's democracy.
I'm not understanding what you're saying to me right now.
Okay, so homelessness is a cause of the loss of jobs, the loss of housing, the cost of housing. It is an issue with how broken our society is and the way people have to deal with that brokenness by either using drugs or not having good mental health. And we don't have enough resources. The
Okay,
city council,
stop there.
okay.
So now so this goes back to the conversation and definitions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's your perspective on what you think is the cause of homelessness. For folks,
Part of, a fraction of,
all right. So, but that's what you stated, right? That's part of. The
right.
other side of that, the other people are saying, you know what? It's people that have made poor decisions. Drug use is a choice, and you know, we they need to figure it out. But that's not our problem, right? Not my monkey, not my circus. So that's what you're dealing with.
Don't steal my line.
I have to. I've been waiting a while to use that one. It's been in my pocket.
But it is, in essence, with 46% of the people in this country one paycheck away from homelessness, it's everybody's monkey and everybody's circus. And
But
wouldn't it be a bitch to find out about homelessness and the causes of homelessness by suddenly being homeless?
I'm not hearing that, right? The
No,
people
you're not, because you're hearing people who are afraid of what they're seeing.
that, but that's what I'm saying. So that's the issue, right? You
Mhm.
saying that is someone who I'm expressing their viewpoint right now. That doesn't
Mhm.
resonate with them at all. I don't
So
care if I'm one paycheck or two paychecks away. I don't want to have to deal with this.
right, I get it. But that's the point about learning how to communicate and listening to what they say. We have 1 hour to have this conversation. So I am not given the grace of leading you through a conversation and finding a place where we can actually end up having a meaningful conversation about that. We have to do this in a compressed time frame. Solutions take time. They take listening and they take education, but not education where I'm going to teach you why you're wrong. You're saying, well, what about this? Well, what about this? How about this? And getting people to engage in thinking through the process instead of just being afraid of it and attacking it
Again, how do you do that, right? I don't. I need
slowly.
to go to work. I need to spend time with my family. I shouldn't have to deal with this, right? I'm a taxpayer,
Mhm.
so fix it. I don't have time to come in and sit in town halls and have these conversations over and over again, right? These people are breaking the law. These people have made their own
Are
decisions.
they? Are they breaking the law?
Again, this is my viewpoint, right? If you're using illegal, illicit drugs, right? If you're assaulting people, if you're using the bathroom, public, what is that? Public exposure, public indecency, whatever they call it,
Yeah.
right?
So
Break
are are
and
they
leave
all using
the outside.
are they all using illegal drugs?
Enough of them are.
Well, how much is enough of them? Where's that information? Because I'd really like to know what you're seeing here. So can you tell me where you get that information so I can go review it?
80%.
80% are using illegal drugs.
Yep, from the point in time count. And if you walk down the street, you can see it.
Okay, and so that's breaking the law. How many of them are indecently exposing themselves?
Almost all of them, because if there's no place to go to the bathroom, they're doing it out in public.
Which you do have now downtown. Though I note that the city is not going to give down the $10,000 for that was expected to service them.
Well, that's an ongoing battle, which is one of the reasons why I had to take that emergency phone call. So that's ongoing.
Did you just a side question? Having just done the grant for the KCR, did you guys do a grant for supporting the toilets down there?
No,
Okay,
that would have been a good idea, but no.
okay. Um, So, are you guys? I'm going to take a sidestep here because fixing problems is important, and indecent exposure can frequently be fixed by having toilets down there, correct? And that now need to be maintained. Do you have a GoFundMe site or a fundraising site that people can donate money to?
Yes,
Can you put that up here so people who are watching the show can see that?
yeah. Let me try to find it before we're done, and I'll put it up there.
Okay. Because I think this is the conversation. People don't want to see indecent exposure. You have a fix that has been implemented for a good portion of that particular issue.
Yes, but the goalpost gets moved because if you provide bathrooms to folks, then you are giving them a luxury, and that is not going to encourage them to fix their situation. Right? It's just going to draw more people to that area. This is what I'm
Okay,
hearing verbatim from people. So
yeah, I understand that, and sometimes you have to push back, saying, "And how are they going to fix it anyhow when there aren't opportunities and resources to do so? There aren't
I'm,
the jobs out there. The jobs numbers are about $15 an hour jobs when rent requires you to have a $30 an hour income to pay rent. So how are we going to get people housed when the jobs are out there paying a half of what you need to pay to live in a place?
again, not my monkey, not my circus. Right?
But you want it to go away without having any responsibility for it.
No, I don't want to be negatively impacted by it, right? And I am a taxpayer, and we do have a 1/10 of 1% that's earmarked for mental health and whatnot, right? I'm paying my taxes,
Ooh,
money there.
a whole 1/10 of 1%.
Hey,
Ooh,
this is what we the people voted on, and that
yeah.
was hard to pass.
So we have a situation where we have people who are want the homelessness problem solved. So here's one way that the city council can solve it, that this model would benefit. You were saying that the city council, I mean, I saw all of the places that people can camp now, according to was on the proposal. This corner here, a whole 10 feet here and there, this gravel driveway between two houses, this, and this there. With all of the property the city has, isn't there some place that is a little bit more beneficial that could happen?
There were a bunch of properties that were earmarked that the city owns, right?
Yes.
And that caused a lot of angst and anger from community members because some of those places are in their neighborhoods, right? One of those places is 5 houses from me on the corner, as an
Mm-hmm.
example, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
And so it's just becoming a situation of you moving it from one place to another where I'm not impacted, but now you're going to impact me. So no, I don't want it, right? I don't
So,
want
so I get they push to have an immediate solution, but maybe if there's just a little more thought and engagement, and the people who are just want it to go away because it impacts them negatively by seeing homeless people, and understand, I lived in Berkeley in the 70s and 80s. I saw lots of homeless people because President of the United States basically closed down all the publicly funded mental institutions and let the people out. And that was the start of our awareness of it a long time ago. This problem's been going on for a very long time. So maybe we need to engage in a different conversation about, with Kitsap Transit, about being able to provide transportation, uh, to talk to the city about an area that's not so centrally located to where we can put up facilities to help the people function, and that we can actually care for them in some one way or another. Because in the end, what everyone seems to be calling for is a way to warehouse them, right?
pretty much.
Yeah. So maybe focusing on a way to do that, and so until the situation can be approached differently. Rock the block. Okay. You have PayPal. You have Cash App.
And I'll put
Okay.
those in the chat. I just wanted to bring that up. The page is theirvoice.org, rock the block. So I guess their voice is probably a kind of like a GoFundMe type thing.
Yes. For
So
social issues.
yep. So I just want to put it up so you can see the logo. You know you're in the right place if you see rock the block.
Okay.
And I'll put that in the chat so people can have access to that later and go back to this.
Okay. So let's move on to the next one because we've talked about this pretty much. But next, I would like to talk. Come on. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, yeah, everybody brings a jigsaw puzzle piece. Some are more frustrating than others because, some of those pieces just don't want to fit into a community piece because they think that it's all individual. But the point is, we are all pieces to a jigsaw puzzle, and we have to find a way to listen to each other and to figure out solutions. And it's not easy. It's not going to happen in an hour on this conversation. It's going to happen over time. And some people will never engage, but that's what tipping points are about. 20% is all you need to engage to change everything. If people started moving together in a positive direction toward creating a real solution, everybody else will go, oh, well, somebody's dealing with this, so I don't have to think about it anymore. And that takes care of a lot of the argument. But we're all part of the puzzle, and we have to have a puzzle that is inclusive and diverse. And that's what this model is about. We don't have to agree. We don't even have to particularly like each other, but we have to work together to create a more mutually beneficial way of living. Okay. And what do we get from that? Well, first of all, if you do the community garden, you get food. You get nutritious food. You get food that's grown locally. Even if it's only 4 months a year, you get food that's grown locally, and that benefits you with the prices of food having gone up 30-40% in the last 7 months. That gives you a break in your wallet. It may not be a lot, but it's at least some help to the to your wallet. Um, you have people that get trained in CPR, or somebody in your neighborhood's a nurse. If something happens, that person knowing you and having a community can help you get through whatever it is or get to where you need to be taken care of. Um, if someone's an auto mechanic and someone's a tax accountant, trade skills. Everybody needs help with taxes. And Marwan, I don't know if you saw the one that I sent you the other day from Intuit.
Mm-mm. Oh, yes. I did watch that.
What was your thought on that? And tell our audience what that was about.
So in that article, the part that was confusing me is it sounded like Intuit has their lobbyists going to the politicians and saying, hey, if you try to make filing for your taxes free, that is going to negatively impact the Black community, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so what they want to do to me is it sounds like they want to still keep their hand in the pocket, right? And so that's their way to do that. We've seen this where companies that bottle Coca-Cola and Nestle and some others, forgive me on the Nestle, I'm not sure about Nestle, but definitely Coke, uh, also were lobbying NAACP and Black orgs to say, hey, these foods, it's actually racist to try to tell Black people what they should and shouldn't eat, even though what it was advocating for nutritious options. But they're saying, no, people should be able to make those choices themselves, right? So it's a really insidious practice to continue to gouge under the guise of, this is actually harmful to a community.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the other piece, and now the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say. So, and I want to give tribute to Paul Harvey. If any of you don't know who he is, go find something on YouTube because it's brilliant. Okay, so I went to file the Resilient Ecosystems taxes this year, and I went to the login that I normally use, and it said, "Oh, you have to create a new login to make sure you're you." Using a program that is not a government agency, but a third party private company called ID Me. I went, okay, whatever, and I started down that process. And very shortly, the intrusive amount of information they want from my personal financials, social security numbers, and everything else, which is the IRS already has, to prove it's me so I can log in, I stopped and I went, these are the types of things that people say never put out on the internet, and that is nobody's damn business. And yet this third party business is going to get all of this information from you so you can log into IRS so you can file your taxes for free. Call regarding the procedure we had to set up. Oh, Marwan, turn your mic off. Thank you. We were just reviewing with them, and they were reviewing the case. And they were unfortunately. Okay, well we'll keep going down this path. All right, so swinging back to that, the IRS is making it very difficult for you to use their service to log in and file for free. This is just another political method, or not political, but corporate method of lobbying to make it more difficult for us to use tools that are provided from the federal government. And they're using spurious arguments that there are very, very little actual data on to keep this going so that they can make massive amounts of money to provide services to you that the government would provide for free. So moving on with this, we're almost done actually. So why would you want to do this? I mean, we just showed you the good stuff. Community, breaking bread, working together, gardening together, being able to make decisions about things that are important, and creating political leverage to get them done because politicians pay attention to political math. But we have a whole bunch of stuff that is about to go down, and it's already going down because of climate change. Food's going to get shorter and shorter because the growing seasons are changing, and the growing conditions are changing. Weather's wiped out crops, droughts wiped out crops. Our overuse of water is creating problems for growing areas. And then we have our own Cascadia Rising and a whole bunch of other things, economic and social, that are going to start impacting us all. And if we don't come together and start learning how to build capacity in our own neighborhoods, to learn how to help each other and provide things like food for each other and start talking to each other with each of our own perspectives, bringing our puzzle piece to the neighborhood, we're going to be on our own when catastrophe hits. And that's not a place you really want to be. So let's get over ourselves and actually start talking to each other. It is hard. Marwan is absolutely right. It is very hard. But if we have this chart right here, so today we have a lot of confusion and inaction. And going back to the co opting of words, the misuse of words, the misunderstanding of words, we have created so much confusion that people don't even know what to do. And they're looking to other people who are basically using misinformation and manipulation to keep us where we are. The only way to get beyond that is together. In the near future, which is today, by the way, we have cascading consequences. We're already seeing the ravaging effects of climate change in storms. As I mentioned earlier, we had two hurricanes, one on either side of the Panama Canal going north, one in the Pacific, one in the Atlantic, which was stopping shipping traffic from being able to go through the Panama Canal. That's goods on our shelves. Panama Canal is going through the Panama is going through a massive drought, and it was from the Los Angeles Times. You can look up the article. If you go to the Kitsap Resiliency Project, I believe that article's on there, and it's talking about how Panama Canals had to slow down shipping, which means shelves are empty. Go look at your store; shelves are empty. It doesn't take a survey or a census to figure that out. You can look for yourself. So we end up in a situation where it's getting shorter and shorter in supply, and that's happening right now. So near future is today, and it's going to get worse. Also, we have 3% of the planet's water is fresh and drinkable. Most of that's in ice shelves and Arctic ice sheets, which is now melting into the ocean because of the climate change. So where are we heading in 5 to 10 years? Planned and unplanned consequences. If we aren't working together and figuring stuff out together, it's bend over and grab your socks. I'm waiting for Marwan to laugh at that one. There we go.
I didn't know if that was insert laugh there,
Yeah, insert laugh there. Okay, so the way to get through this is to come together, to have the difficult conversations. And it doesn't even have to be everybody. As I say, tipping points is 20% of the people. 20% of the people, 25% at the most to move quickly. 25% of the people start doing something together. Everyone else will follow along. This is how change happens. Don't believe me? Talk to Princeton University. Talk to, Yale, people who've done the studies on this. And this is how things work. But it starts with the neighborhood. And yes, it is very difficult conversations. And no, it is not going to happen overnight. It's generational work. But we can make major hurdles in a year if we start talking. Otherwise, we can just sit around in confusion and inaction and let it all happen. And that's always worked so well for us in the past.
I'm with you. I just and we do need to do that, right? I mean, it's just good to get grounded in that way. My concern is we're watching this on both sides, right? From a macro level nationally, where we're so far apart on things. And how do we begin to do that, right? When you look at democracy and how it's supposed to work, we have our election, and even when one side has all three levers of power, there's
They don't do
still
anything.
that's exactly my point, right?
Yeah, you don't get reelected by doing anything because somebody will point at it and say that's a bad thing.
Right.
And we've created this, so we have to bring we have to bring democracy back down to a local level. We have to educate people in democracy. We have to empower them. by having these conversations. And you're right, it is not easy. And it is not going to happen overnight. And you're going to have people who argue till they're blue in the face, and hopefully, therefore, they get asphyxiated and drop over dead. But we can talk things through if we keep it away from divisive subjects. And what is less divisive than having a barbecue? By the way, these are Marwan's folks from G2, um, putting on a community barbecue in Viewcrest Village last year. And we did this to get people talking to each other.
Yeah, they were out there burning, turning, and burning. And
Yep.
don't forget Terry there in the background.
Yep. Yeah, Terry and I kind of like bridged the gap between G2 and resilient ecosystems. We do a little of both. So anyway, this is what we need to do. That's what Community for All is. Now we'll get more into it later, but as you can see, without successfully starting to build Community for All, we will not have the will to do the rest of it. And you don't have to buy into everything. I mean, we're not talking communism here, and I'm not going to grow my beard big and white and start wearing a Marxist hat. What we're talking about is working together and supporting each other, which, by the way, is how humans work. It's how we've always worked when we're at our best. And now we're at 2:02, so I've run over by 2 minutes. I'm sorry.
No, that's all good. I haven't been here in a minute. I'm just putting these places where folks can make donations if they so feel inclined. And it's more than just the porta potties. So hygiene kits. Right now we have someone that's on the block who is wheelchair bound, should be going into surgery today. So we are taking people to the hospital. We're showing up in court with them, and trying to advocate for them, trying to get folks guardianship for those that need it, that can't either have mental health issues or elderly or have some physical limitations. Right, they're not going to be able to go to work and sustain housing and pay bills and things like that. Right, there's a large contingent of folks that are experiencing homelessness that are in that situation. So going to court on their behalf, trying to look up family members and trying to reconnect them with family, getting folks to treatment, right? The what is it called? Medical detox. Many of these places are in Longview or in Port Angeles, far, far away. And so those folks need transportation there when they're ready to say, hey, I
Which
want to.
G2 provides.
Yes, yes.
I
We can't
I was
always do it. We're trying
yeah.
to find funding for that, because that's a huge expenditure on us, right? That takes a
Yeah.
driver out of pocket in a vehicle for more than 6 hours, to transport one person
But on
there, and
the
there's no budget.
and more immediately, I drove 2 children to school from Broadway last week.
Yes. And unfortunately, they are now in CPS custody because the parents were not able to do what they needed to do, sadly.
Oof.
So, yes. But Mark is absolutely right, right? Transporting kids that are experiencing homelessness to school while their parents are battling addiction. So it's a little bit of everything that's happening down there. To this date, we've gotten more than 24 people off of ML King and Broadway, but it takes a lot of intensive care. There's someone who's still in the hospital that's been there for more than 2 weeks. And so we've got folks that are Rock the Block that are going to visit them. Kimmy and Kelsey and Dom Michelle. Sometimes I'm on a phone call, FaceTime with several folks talking to the because I'm not going to say any names, but to the person that was on ML King and then now is in a hospital bed, getting treatment and getting help, and trying to keep their spirits up and just doing things like that. Folks are really giving, and these aren't independently wealthy people. These are people that are working full-time jobs. Kimmy's a Harborview nurse. Don Michelle works in Bellevue. Kelsey works for Kitsap Public Health. These are full-time employees somewhere else, and then using their off time to do that. If you can hear the rain right now, summer's over, and It poured yesterday and it is pouring now. You don't hear it? It's not hitting you. We're not too far away.
I'm
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
I
You get
can
the
I
headphones
can
on. It's coming down, right? Uh,
Yeah, and it was coming down yesterday, and the backing here and the face of the show was "Autumn's here. Are you ready?" Of
no,
course, you're not.
no, we're not ready. We're not ready. But as Maya Angelou says, still we rise. And I know we're a little over, but I just wanted to I missed a lot because I'm doing emergency conversations with the county, and
Yep.
that's my surgeon. I'm
By
supposed
the
to have
way,
back surgery Friday.
yeah, just a note: turn your mic off when you do that.
I was using the wrong mic, so I thought I was using this mic the
Okay.
whole time. I was using my default mic, so I didn't know I was still hot.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I tried to talk loud enough to keep your
no, I
privacy
appreciate that
private.
because that's like my surgery schedule. So it's like okay. But this is really what that is, right? So if you look at the
Yeah.
yellow, that would be whoever you want to put here, Marwan or Kimmy or Dawn, and then gathering other folks, Bailey and other people together and saying, hey, and then trying to push it this way and turning into the green. That's what we're trying to do with Rock the Block. And those are the things that can be done. Whether it's G2, this could be Roseco with Mark, and then bringing in Terry and myself and Martita and others, and then trying to pull it into the green, right? So those are real examples of things that are happening today. The things that we are trying to teach are things that we do ourselves, right? And so you can see it in the work that we do. And we do need folks to bring their puzzle piece and expand that piece, turn that green, make it turn into green from that orange, right? I think even the green might not be a great color. Maybe it needs to be more of a yellow. And then as it gets a little bit bigger, then it's a green or a brighter green, right? That we hit that tipping point, and now we're where we need to be. Um, but the fight's hard. It's tedious, and you have to be the one to understand your position and understand the people who you're speaking to, what their position is, right? And I talk about that in negotiations all the time, right? The best negotiators, you already know what your interests are. You need to know who you're negotiating against, what their interests are, and find out a way.
Negotiating with.
Yes, and make it a win-win instead of a zero-sum game. And if there is something that people have to sacrifice on each side, that both people are taking a little bit of a cut, but then both people are getting something out of it and finding a way to articulate that, right? That it's for the greater good.
And that's what we
Yeah,
teach.
absolutely. So I just wanted to
So
touch on
for
that.
those of you who think Marwan just flip flopped, he didn't. He just likes to play devil's advocate to keep this moving forward. But this is the work Marwan and I do every day.
Well, and thank you for bringing that up, because what I do in the conversations that I have is I'm constantly hearing the other side's opinion, right? So that's all I take in all day long, right? I'm swimming against the stream, right? And I'm saying, hey, there's a better way, there's a different way. What's important to you? What do you think? How do you feel? All right, how do we turn and then we start doing this together, right? So I this is what I deal with.
Right. And what we're trying to do is get the conversations to be had before we get into a conflictive situation where we're so polarized on either side.
And
If we can get communities to come together and start having those kind of conversations and seeing it from different points of view and teaching them to do that, we don't get into the conflicted pieces. We go through a process of consensus.
yeah, and if it was easy, it'd already be done, right? That's why there's a need.
Yep.
Rob says, yes, it is. All right. Now we are 9 minutes over. But I did miss a little bit. I wanted to give my
And we had two short ones. So
put that in there. Give you the final word.
um I guess I'm going to quote the Beatles. Come together.
Right now. Is that how the song
Yep.
goes? All right.
Over me. No, wait.
Whoa.
that just
All
went
right.
somewhere
Well, that
different.
just took a turn. Hey, everyone, this is a family show. All right.
No, it's not. We suggest not for kids.
Well, it's good to end with a little smile and a laugh. So for Mark Boatwright Frost, I am R1 Cameron. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. We will be back on the conduit at 5 p.m. for the study session for the Bremerton City Council meeting. Until then, we'll see you soon. No outro.